Hello. What if I told you that, long before the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Mesopotamia, and the megacities of Triphylia, a culture flourished in the heart of Europe that already knew the secrets of metallurgy, built cities, and perhaps invented the oldest system of writing? Today, we are talking about the Vinca culture. Who were they? How did they live? Why did their enormous cities disappear? And what do these mysterious symbols mean? In this video, we will dive into the world of Old Europe, the lost world of the Vinca culture. Get ready, because we are traveling 7,000 years back in time. On the banks of the Danube, near modern-day Belgrade in Serbia, lies an archaeological site known as Vinca Belo Brdo. It was here in 1908 that Serbian archaeologist Miloje Vasic, respectfully called the father of Serbian archaeology, began systematic excavations that continued intermittently until 1932. The result of his titanic work was the monumental 4-volume publication Prehistoric Vinca. This work first introduced the world to the incredible richness of the newly discovered culture. Thousands of anthropomorphic and zoomorphic figurines, tools made of stone and bone, and the characteristic dark, burnished pottery that became the culture's hallmark. However, Vasic's own interpretation of these finds is a cautionary tale about how dominant scientific paradigms can influence a researcher's conclusions. Initially, in 1906, he correctly identified the settlement as Neolithic, but over time, his views changed radically. He argued that Vinca was not a Neolithic settlement, but an early Bronze Age colony, and later even an Ionian Greek colony founded around 600 BC. He saw analogies between Vinca pottery and archaic Greek vases, believing that Balkan cultures must have originated from the more advanced civilizations of the Aegean and Near East. This theory, now completely debunked, was not a simple mistake. It was a reflection of the paradigm that dominated archaeology in the early 20th century. This model assumed that significant cultural innovations in barbarian Europe must have been imported from the civilizational centers of the Middle East and Greece. Thus, Vasic's error is not so much a personal miscalculation as a general illustration of how theoretical frameworks can shape the interpretation of data by the scientists themselves. The scientific understanding of the Vinca culture was corrected and deepened only after Vasic, thanks to the work of subsequent generations of Serbian archaeologists. The works of Dragoslav Srejović and Milutin Garašanin played a key role in this process. Srejović, in particular, in his dissertation on Vinca figurative art, focused on interpreting the art and belief systems of this culture. Garašanin, for his part, was one of those who definitively established the correct chronological and cultural context of Vinca, firmly anchoring it within the Balkan Neolithic. Modern excavations, which resumed in 1978 under the direction of Nikola Tasić, used advanced methods that revealed the full depth of the site's stratigraphy. A cultural layer 10.5 meters thick was discovered, testifying to millennia of continuous habitation. Srejović poetically described this layer as a luxurious carpet, woven from the red, yellow, and black remains of burned huts and destroyed settlements, preserving the treasures of the past. In general, the question of how exactly the Vinca culture emerged around 5400 BC has become central to the study of the European Neolithic. The debate centered around two main models, one arguing that the culture was the result of local evolution, and the other that it was the product of external migration. In the second half of the 20th century, the theory of autochthonous local development became dominant. This model asserts that the Vinca culture developed directly from the preceding Starchevo culture, whose representatives, in turn, came to the Balkans from Anatolia about 1,000 years before the rise of Vinca, bringing with them the skills of farming and a sedentary lifestyle. The first settlers of Vinca Belo Brdo were likely colonists from the broader Starchevo cultural sphere, living in tent-like dwellings with foundations dug into the lowest soil. It was they who laid the agricultural foundation on which the much more complex Vinca culture later flourished. The most famous proponents of this theory were the British archaeologist Colin Renfrew and the American researcher Ruth Tringham. For instance, in his 1969 work, The Autonomy of the Southeast European Copper Age, Renfrew argued that changes in pottery, settlement structure, and technology could be explained by internal social and economic processes, rather than an influx of new populations. This view was reinforced by the radiocarbon revolution, which provided independent dates and showed that many European achievements, including early metallurgy, were older than their supposed Eastern counterparts. The opposing hypothesis is that the Vinca phenomenon was caused by a second wave of migration from Anatolia to the Balkans. This view was shared by early researchers like V. Gordon Childe in his 1929 work, The Danube in Prehistory, and later supported by archaeologists like Garshanin. They based their arguments on the typological similarity between the material cultures of the Balkans and the Middle East. Vasage himself, with his theory of Ionian colonization, was an early, albeit extreme, proponent of this diffusionist thinking. This outdated model viewed prehistoric Europe as a passive periphery, receiving cultural impulses from a single cradle of civilization in the East. Thus, the dispute over the origin of Vinca was not just about pottery styles. It was more about whether prehistoric Europe was an active center of innovation, capable of independently creating complex societies. The Vinca culture became key evidence for the school of autonomy, demonstrating that complex societies could arise in Europe without direct stimulus from the East. The economic basis of Vinca society was a highly effective mixed subsistence strategy. Agriculture was intensified with the introduction of high-yield crops like bread wheat and the wider use of barley. Animal husbandry, with an emphasis on cattle breeding, also played a major role. This agricultural surplus supported a growing population and craft specialization, which led to the emergence of merchants. Long-distance trade networks were extensive, as evidenced by the presence of spondylus shells from the Aegean Sea, used to make luxury ornaments, and obsidian for sharp blades, imported from as far as the Carpathian Mountains. All this, according to scientists, led to a demographic boom. The population of the Vinca culture grew significantly, leading to the formation of some of the largest settlements in prehistoric Europe. Sites like Vinca Beloburdo, Stubline, and Parcha are estimated to have had thousands of inhabitants. These were not chaotic villages, but dense, highly organized agglomerations, which some researchers consider Europe's first cities. Houses were built of wood and clay, oriented in a uniform direction from southeast to northwest, and placed very close together, sometimes only 1 meter apart, with no yards, suggesting some form of urban planning. Some houses may have had 2 floors, ovens, and special pits for garbage. As for burials, things are not so simple here. Although burials are found within Vinca settlements, they generally belong to either preceding or succeeding cultures. For example, at the famous Vinca Beloburdo settlement, a large grave was found, but it belonged to the earlier Starcevo culture. Copper Age graves were also discovered there, which also have no connection to the Vinca culture. As archaeologist Nenad Tasic notes, only about 120 deceased individuals have been found across 400 settlements, spanning 800 years. This circumstance makes any conclusions about a standard burial rite very difficult. Thus, archaeologists do not have a clear answer to the question of how the Vinca culture buried their dead. The absence of graves suggests that other ways of handling bodies may have existed, which, well, leave no archaeological traces. The most revolutionary achievement of the Vinca culture, however, was the independent invention of copper metallurgy, effectively marking the beginning of the Metal Age in Europe. Archaeological data from sites like Belovod and Plochnik in Serbia have provided reliable evidence of high-temperature copper smelting, dated to around 5000 BC. The Plochnik site is of particular importance. Excavations revealed a complex furnace with clay tube-like air vents, tuyere, and a chimney, a construction more advanced than those that appeared even centuries later. Among the artifacts found are numerous copper tools, such as axes and chisels. But the most astonishing thing is that a 2013 analysis of a tin bronze foil found at Plochnik dated it to approximately 4650 BC, with a tin content of about 12%. This is the oldest tin bronze artifact found in the world, pushing back the timeline for this complex alloy by 1500 years and proving its independent invention in Europe. This discovery fundamentally changes the history of technology. It not only refutes the long-standing diffusionist model, according to which metallurgy spread from a single center in the Middle East, but also points to the non-linear nature of technological progress. After the discovery of advanced tin bronze, around 4650 BC, there is a long hiatus. The next horizon of bronze in Serbia appears only in the 3rd millennium BC, and it's a completely different type. It's arsenical bronze. This means that this revolutionary technology was lost. Such a cycle of boom and bust refutes the simplistic progressive narrative of technological history and suggests that innovations in prehistoric times were quite fragile and could be lost due to social collapse. One of the most intriguing and hotly debated aspects of the Vinca culture is the abstract symbols inscribed on thousands of artifacts. The question of whether they represent the world's first writing system remains open to this day and forces a reconsideration of the very nature of literacy and the development of civilization. The debate was sparked by the 1961 discovery of the Triphylia tablets in Romania, which contain various symbols and, according to controversial data, may date to 5300 BC. If this date is correct, these signs predate the earliest Sumerian cuneiform by more than a millennium. The most prominent proponent of the writing theory was Maria Gimbutas. In works such as The Language of the Goddess, she argued that these symbols were not random decorations, but constituted a coherent system of sacred script used for religious and ritual purposes. She believed this script was part of a unified symbolic system, prevalent in the civilization she called Old Europe. There are other versions as well. Archaeologists Garashanin and Strajovic suggested a more mundane function, proposing that the symbols were simply potters or owner's marks. The main evidence for this is that some signs, especially on the bases of vessels, are unique. However, this theory cannot explain why many other signs are repeated across territories hundreds of kilometers apart and over entire centuries. Be that as it may, the most common view is that the symbols had religious significance, but did not encode language. They could have been abstract representations of deities, prayers, or vows made during domestic rituals. The fact that they are often found in garbage pits or buried under houses suggests that the objects were used in a ceremony and then ritually discarded. The controversy surrounding the Vinca symbols is, in essence, a dispute about the definition of writing itself. The modern Western perspective often links writing with administration and the phonetic recording of language. The case of the Vinca culture challenges this, suggesting that the earliest systematic use of signs in Europe may have been driven by ritual and ideology, not economics. The Mesopotamian model for the origin of writing is linked to the state's needs for accounting and administration. The Vinca symbols appear in a society lacking evidence of a centralized state or hierarchy. Therefore, if writing is defined purely as an administrative tool, the Vinca symbols fail the test. However, if the definition is expanded to include any standardized system of graphic signs used to communicate complex ideas within a community, then the Vinca system might qualify as a unique, non-administrative form of writing. Another source of intense scholarly debate is the thousands of enigmatic figurines found at Vinca culture sites. They have become a central element of the influential but rather controversial goddess theory. In her works, such as The Goddesses and Gods of Old Europe, Maria Gimbutas developed a powerful interpretive model. She argued that the vast majority of anthropomorphic figurines, which are predominantly female, represent a single supreme great goddess and her various aspects, such as the bird goddess with a beak-like face. Gimbutas saw these figurines as evidence of a goddess-centered religion that permeated the broader civilization she called Old Europe. She characterized this society as peaceful, sedentary, egalitarian, and matrifocal, that is, centered on women. This peaceful world, in her view, existed for millennia before being destroyed by patriarchal invaders from the east. In contrast to Gimbutas's theory, many researchers propose various alternative functions for these figurines, instead of a single religious explanation. For example, Dragoslav Srejovic interpreted the figurines as cultic and magical tools used in rituals, possibly related to folklore traditions. Many figurines depict detailed clothing, skirts, blouses, jewelry, and hairstyles, suggesting they might have partly served as representations of real people and contemporary fashion. Some smaller figurines have holes, indicating they may have been worn as amulets or suspended from clothing. A crucial find from the Stubline site provides unique insight into a possible social function. A group of 43 figurines was found on the floor of a house in front of an oven. The figurines are nearly identical, with bird-like heads, except for a central, larger figure. 11 of them held miniature models of tools or weapons. Interpretations of this scene vary. They could be game pieces, a depiction of a clan council with the larger figure as the chief, or symbols representing a band of warriors setting out on an expedition, for whom prayers were offered in their absence. Thus, the Vinca figurines are a classic example of the profound ambiguity of prehistoric art. The same objects can serve as evidence for both a peaceful feminist utopia and a society preoccupied with clan politics and warfare. The find at Stubline, with its armed figurines surrounding a central leader figure, strongly challenges Gimbutas's purely peaceful, religious interpretation, introducing themes of hierarchy, social structure, and potential conflict. It is likely that the figurines served a multitude of functions that varied depending on the context of time and place, and were part of a complex symbolic system that encompassed religion, social identity, politics, and daily life. After nearly 2 millennia of stability and innovation, the Vinca culture began to fade. Its mysterious decline and disappearance are the subject of debates considering both internal and external factors that led to the end of this great civilization. Well, not civilization, culture. Around 4500 BC, the Vinca network began to lose its cohesion. The long-distance trade networks that brought shells and obsidian collapsed. Life in the large settlements deteriorated sharply, and the territory occupied by the Vinca population shrank. A horizon of burned buildings, marking the final level of Vinca settlement at many sites, indicates a period of destruction and possible violence. Eventually, the culture gives way to subsequent Neolithic Copper Age cultures, such as the Gumelnica culture in the east and the Lengyel culture in the northwest. Some theories link the decline to environmental and economic factors. John Chapman, in his 1981 work, suggested that after 2,000 years of intensive agriculture, economic stress caused by declining soil fertility and resource depletion became the primary cause of the decline. This view is supported by Bogdan Bruckner, who argues that this economic stress led to a period of stagnation and, consequently, social tension, forcing large extended families to break apart into smaller ones. A dramatic, though highly controversial theory was put forward by Maria Gimbutas. She claimed that her peaceful, matrifocal Old Europe was destroyed by a series of invasions by warlike, patriarchal, horse-riding Proto-Indo-European tribes. Although this theory is considered overly simplistic today, recent archaeogenetic studies have provided some support for the idea of a major population migration from the steppe into Europe during this period, associated with the spread of haplogroups R1a and R1b in Indo-European languages. In my opinion, a synthesis of these views is the most plausible. The end of the Vinca culture was not a single event, but rather a complex process of transformation driven by multiple factors. It is likely that Vinca society, already weakened by internal stresses, was unable to withstand the pressure from new groups migrating into the Balkans. The result was not a simple replacement, but a cultural transformation, during which elements of the Vinca heritage were incorporated into the new Neolithic societies that subsequently emerged. Friends, thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel.